Session 4, SQL for Business Analytics and Insight Extraction. Most advice online is trash, especially when it comes to learning SQL. You're told to memorize syntax, practice random problems, and write queries that never touch real business data. You learn how to pass quizzes, not how to think. Then you wonder why SQL still feels confusing or disconnected from real work. The problem isn't your ability. It's the way SQL is usually taught. The next step changes everything: clarity. SQL is not a programming contest where the goal is to write the cleverest query. It's a way to ask precise, structured questions of business data. When you stop treating SQL like a language to memorize and start treating it like a thinking tool, everything clicks. Each select, where, and join becomes part of a question you're trying to answer, not just code you're trying to make run. Nearly all key datasets in US companies live inside databases. Sales records, customer activity, financial transactions, operational logs, they're all stored there. If Excel helps you think through a problem, SQL helps you reach the truth at the source. It lets you filter noise, focus on what matters, and work directly with real business data. Once you see SQL this way, it stops feeling abstract and starts feeling practical. Let's change how you see it and how you use it. Relational databases in business. Business databases are designed first for reliability and accuracy, not for human convenience, which is why the data often feels scattered when you see it for the first time. Customers exist in one table, orders in another, and payments somewhere else entirely. This separation is not accidental and it is not chaos. It is deliberate design. Relational databases organize information into structured tables that connect to each other through keys. Every table has a clear purpose, and every relationship represents how real-world entities interact. In US businesses especially, this structure is critical because it protects data accuracy, minimizes duplication, and allows systems to scale as companies grow. Beginners often wonder why everything is not stored in a single table. The answer is simple: one large table breaks quickly. It becomes inconsistent, hard to maintain, and error-prone. Multiple well-designed tables, on the other hand, are stable, flexible, and long-lasting. Once this concept clicks, SQL starts to feel logical instead of confusing. You stop resisting the structure and begin working with it. Tables act like nouns, describing entities such as customers or products. Relationships act like verbs, showing how those entities interact. With this mental model, joins stop feeling abstract and start to make sense. If Excel is your workspace where analysis happens, SQL is the data source that feeds it. Professional analysts are fluent in both, moving smoothly between extracting structured data with SQL and analyzing it in tools like Excel. Business-focused SQL queries. Most SQL tutorials teach you how to retrieve data. They show you how to write select statements, use joins, and apply basic filters. What they rarely teach is how to answer real business questions. That's the gap where many analysts get stuck. A business-focused SQL query doesn't start with code. It starts with intent. Until the intent is clear, the query will always feel messy or incomplete. A US marketing team once asked an analyst a simple question: which customers should we target next month? A beginner might immediately pull the entire customer table, join everything available, and hope insight appears later. A professional pauses and asks a more important question: what does target actually mean? Does it mean customers active in the last 90 days? Customers with high lifetime value? Customers showing early signs of churn? Each definition leads to a completely different query and a completely different business outcome. The analyst clarified the decision first, aligned with stakeholders, and only then wrote the SQL. The query itself wasn't fancy. It used filters, date logic, and simple conditions. No complex tricks. But the result changed the campaign. Marketing focused on the right customers. Spending became more efficient. Results improved. SQL works best when the question is sharp. Vague questions create bloated queries filled with unnecessary joins and columns. Clear questions create clean logic. This is why professionals write SQL in steps. They filter early to reduce noise. They select only what matters. They label fields clearly so results are understandable. SQL isn't about writing fast or clever code. It's about precision. When the question is clear, the SQL almost writes itself and the insight actually gets used. Joins and aggregations for metrics. Joins scare people. They shouldn't. A join is not magic, and it's not advanced SQL. A join answers one simple idea: how do these tables relate to each other? That's it. One table describes something. Another table adds context. The join is just the bridge between them. When you understand the relationship, the join becomes obvious, not intimidating. Aggregations answer a different but equally simple question: how does this data summarize? Counts, sums, averages, and groupings turn raw rows into meaning. Alone, joins connect data. Alone, aggregations summarize data. Together, they create metrics, the numbers businesses actually care about. Revenue by month. Customers per region. Conversion rate by campaign. Here's a quick reflection. When you see multiple tables, do you feel overwhelmed or curious? If it's overwhelmed, slow down. Don't rush to write code. First, look at the keys. Ask what connects to what and why. Then decide the level you're measuring. Is this per customer, per order, or per day? That level is called the grain, and it matters more than syntax. Most metric errors happen right here. A wrong join can double count data. A wrong grain can distort results. That's why experienced analysts double-check joins before trusting any output. They validate row counts. They sanity check totals. Once joins and aggregations are clicked, SQL changes. You stop pulling data just to see it. You start shaping data to create insight, and that's when SQL becomes powerful. SQL best practices. Let's look at a real US finance scenario. An analyst was responsible for generating monthly revenue and risk metrics used by leadership. Under pressure, they wrote a single massive SQL query. It worked, but barely. Hundreds of lines long, deeply nested, and hard to scan. No spacing. No comments. When the numbers changed from one month to the next, no one could explain why. Even the original author struggled to trace the logic. Every update felt risky, because one small change could break everything. Another analyst approached the same problem differently. They rebuilt the query using best practices. The logic was broken into clear steps. Each section answered one question. Table aliases were meaningful. Calculations were named clearly. Filters were explicit. The final result was identical, but the experience was completely different. Anyone on the team could read it, follow it, and trust it. This is what SQL best practices are really about: sustainability. Readable queries build confidence in the numbers. Simple, modular logic reduces hidden errors. Consistent structure makes collaboration possible across teams. In US finance environments, where audits, reviews, and compliance matter, this clarity is not optional. Professional analysts don't write SQL just to get results. They write SQL for humans, not just databases. Because the next person reading your query might be your manager, your teammate, or you, 6 months later. Closing summary plus practical next steps. Bringing this together, SQL isn't about complexity, it's about clarity. The goal isn't writing elaborate queries or using every function, it's asking the right questions and structuring solutions that deliver meaningful answers. You explored database design, the role of relational tables and keys, and why these structures ensure accuracy and scalability in US businesses. You also saw how business questions guide queries, and how joins and aggregations turn raw data into actionable metrics. Recall the marketing example. The insight didn't come from complex syntax or clever functions, it came from asking a clear, precise question first and letting that guide the query. 2 actions put this into practice immediately. First, write your question in plain English before writing any SQL. A vague question leads to a vague query. Second, break queries into readable steps. Structure them so anyone can follow the logic months later. Clarity builds trust, reduces errors, and supports collaboration. Cleverness without clarity is meaningless.